Hello, YouTubers, friends, compatriots, hooligans, desolate servants, peasants, vassals, military accountants. I'm a useful idiot, and turns out that austerity is finally slowing down the global spending on the military. Some people might be surprised that it actually took 5 years of this economic collapse to finally have military spending be cut and be forced to be cut because governments are all broke. So it's about time. And I remember doing a video about the fact that Greece, in spite of all the austerity that they were going through, they were still doing record spending on the military. But I'm sure that honeymoon is over as well. So what it turns out to be is that the world's military spending has decreased for the first time since 1999. So roughly 15 years. A welcome sight, although it's still not exactly bad for business. The U.S. share of global total of military spending slipped below 40%. In other words, the U.S. was spending over 40% more than the rest of the world combined on their military. So globally, governments still spent $1.75 trillion on their militaries in 2012. Rather surprised the figures not higher than that. It's 2.5% of world GDP. So relatively speaking, surprised that number is as low as it is as well. $250 per person for all the military spending done globally. So those are still some pretty big figures. And interestingly enough, all of this austerity affecting military spending has only been Europe and the U.S., where military spending has declined. Because, as a matter of fact, spending in the military in China, Asia, the Middle East, Russia, Latin America, and Africa all rose. So this huge dip in military spending is all the Western countries. And that's going to be alarming for some geopoliticians, considering the fact that between 2003 and 2012, Chinese military spending rose 175%. And in fact, last year in 2012, China ousted the UK as the number 5 largest arms seller in the world, mostly because of the arms they sell to Pakistan. And so this move from the east to the west is really affecting business for Western arms manufacturers. And this all shows us some important things that are important in general, whether you're an economist, a historian, a military buff, a geopolitical fan. This reveals a number of things. One thing, it shows that the market is driven, the military market is driven somewhat by the amount of money available and not necessarily the need for equipment. And that's interesting. Then, of course, we have to look at the fact that NATO countries are required by NATO rules, if you're a member of NATO, that you have to contribute something like 2% of your GDP to military spending. And if anyone knows that that's not true, please comment below. And so this also shows that the amount of military spending in Europe and U.S. was a huge amount. And the fact that China, Asia, the Middle East, Russia, Latin America, and Africa can all continue buying, and their military spending going up while it declines in the U.S. and Europe. And that's enough to impact it to the highest level in 15 years. I mean, that's pretty surprising. And so now austerity is finally taking a bite. And of course, I'm sure the mechanisms in the Eurozone are the same as they are in the United States, where the amount of money that's available to the Pentagon right now is really the same. There hasn't really been any cuts, because the cuts aren't in spending. They're cuts in future budgets and future spending. So that's the problem, is the fact that they have contracts for all of the stuff that they are already committed to, and all this money gets poured into to develop all these new weapon systems, and so they've already got their hands in the cookie jar. So this is part of the problem, because it's not so much maintaining the military that we already have, it's commitments to contracts and future spending into the future. So anyway, we're going to see the impact of austerity for some time to come, as a lot of these long-term, high-expense military programs come under the microscope because they have to. And that's another reason, too, when I talk about looking at all these details and see what it reveals. It also reveals the reasoning behind this new American military strategy, and I'm sure the Europeans will be adopting the same new strategy, and that is to hire mercenaries, use special forces in small units, do surgical operations, use drones, use robots, use intelligence, use high technology, and that will be the wave of the future. And as I mentioned in a video about the laser technology that's being developed now, a missile costs $1 million, a laser shot costs $1. Fighter plane costs millions and tens of millions of dollars. Drones cost in the tens of thousands and the hundreds of thousands. So this new military is also having to work just with the fact that they have a smaller budget, and this will force more reliance on some of these cheaper technologies. So that's another thing this whole thing reveals. But so anyway, in the lining of this story is actually a little bit of good news. The fact that austerity and government cutbacks are finally affecting the amount of money that's spent on the military, at least in the Eurozone and the U.S. I'm a useful idiot. Don't you be one too.